Hi everyone, happy Women History Month. My name is Lisa Huang-North and I'm currently a product lead at Planet, a space technology company that's using space to help life on Earth. In celebration of Women History Month, I've had the amazing opportunity to speak with 8 product leaders over the past few months. And today, I'd love to share their stories with you in this 8-part interview series, which I'm calling The Paths to Product. Today, we'll get to hear the story of Grace Young.
Welcome, Grace. I'm very excited to be speaking with you today. So thank you for joining me for this conversation.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
For those who are watching the video, today I'm getting this wonderful opportunity to interview Grace Young, who I think we met each other through the Women in Product group. Yeah, and Grace has had a fascinating journey. I see that you start with DNA research to real estate investment, even barista and business ops, and ultimately landed in product management. So I think today, really to start, is I'd love to hear more about your journey or your path to product.
Here's the thing. When you ask a little kid what they want to be when they grow up, the answers are invariably quite limited to the careers that they can see and understand, right? Like they will usually say they want to be a firefighter or an astronaut or a teacher or doctor or nurse. That's basically it.
Yeah. It's
And
people who they've seen and encountered in their daily
yeah,
lives. Yeah.
yeah. And there are so many careers out there that when I was growing up, I didn't know existed, and product management was certainly one of them. And I had a love for many different subjects, including math, but I didn't know what I could do with it. I spent my childhood and entered college thinking that I was sure that I wanted to study cellular and molecular biology, get an MD, PhD, and split my time when I grew up doing clinical oncology and also doing cancer research. And I worked in 2 different labs doing genetic research and cancer research. And I published in Nature scientific reports when I was in high school. And that desire to have a portfolio career and to do different things on different days hasn't changed at all. And product management still allows me to do that. But the beauty of getting older and the beauty of college is that it exposed me to other things. And my drive, my core drive in life, in school, in career, everything is people. It's people, relationships, and community. And it was precisely for this reason that I chose to study math, because the people there and the community and the focus and spirit of collaboration in the Harvard math department was unparalleled. And while I loved the subject matter, really beautiful, that came second to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was similarly also the people that drew me into my first job in tech, which was at Tribe Dynamics. One of my best friends from college was working there as their chief data scientist. And it was his conviction in the company and what the company was doing in influencer marketing and the other people that I met while interviewing there that convinced me to move from the East Coast to San Francisco to take that job.
Yeah.
And I was hired there to do data science, but it was while I was there that I started doing what I now know to be product management for internal tools. And I enjoy influencing decisions and enabling others to do their best work. So when you ask me, what do you want to work on? My answer has always been whatever I believe is most pressing to the organization at that moment and wherever I believe my skills can be best applied. While I was there, I saw a lot of issues with our internal software, and there were complaints and pain points that I would hear of over and over again from my coworkers. So I wanted to understand those problems and improve the software by serving as the link between the user and the developer. So solving those problems for the users and making their workflows more efficient, pain-free, and delightful as possible is what I love doing. And that's what motivates me to go to work every day. So that's why I love product management.
That's awesome and really beautiful. I think that's the first time I've heard the concept of a portfolio career, and that actually really resonates. to your point where product management is all about bridging the gaps, right? And translating across
Yeah.
different teams and different disciplines. So I think
Yeah.
even looking at it as a portfolio really makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I'm different from a lot of other people that I've met in product management who see product management as a career vertical, right? They see it as something that they break into and then they climb the ranks. I don't see it as that for myself. I see product management as a method and a lens
Mhm.
and a way of doing things. And it's a tool. I don't necessarily need to have the title or the role of a product manager to apply product management concepts. And I would be totally happy doing something different like business operations or being a chief of staff. And I would still be a product manager at heart.
I think when you boil it down to the principles, which is some of the things you
Yeah.
mentioned earlier, that it's really having that customer centric approach and understanding people's pain or problem points and using that very human centered way of creative problem solving. You can still do that for business operations. You can still do that as chief of staff. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm actually curious to hear more since you mentioned chief of staff. I know that's a somewhat new role in tech, and obviously coming from kind of the political system where chief of staff have been around a while. What has piqued your interest about the role, and what
Yeah.
what type of transferable skills do you see?
In every company that I've worked at, almost every company I've worked at, I have worked closely with senior leadership, reported directly to the CEO, and been a key partner to the executive team. And I see chief of staff as being someone who is a strategic partner to the principal that they serve, right? The principal can be the CEO, it can be the CMO, or it can be whoever they're reporting to, and being a force multiplier for them, right? If there's something that the executive, the principal they're serving wants to investigate, say they want to maybe explore expanding into a new country, market, then the chief of staff can tackle that project. And on a different day, they're maybe doing something else. Maybe they are figuring out how to improve the hiring pipeline. And I love that aspect of getting to work on different problems over time, different problems, different types of problems, having different types of work, working across many different teams with people from different backgrounds. And like I said, I enjoy being an influencer, influencing decision making. I don't necessarily need to have hard power. That's not something I'm attracted to, but I'm attracted to having influence and having soft power. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And I think based on the way you describe it, it certainly sounds very dynamic. Where that typical question of, oh, what's your typical day at work? I can totally imagine you in a chief of staff role where you say, well, it depends. It kind of depends on what flavor of the week slash
That's
month happens to be,
it.
right?
Yeah, that's what's exciting about it, having new problems and new stimulation every day and having that intellectual challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's wonderful. What were some of the maybe skills or qualities that you found during the time when you have been a product manager that you think of just broad applicable skills, regardless of what field or discipline or even industry that you may go into?
Being able to communicate very well in many different formats, whether it be written, right? You write a lot of emails to people, you write product requirements, technical requirements, whether it be spoken, you're in a lot of meetings all the time trying to communicate concepts, and being able to communicate with people that have different backgrounds and different levels of technical understanding, who are coming from different places and have different pieces of the puzzle, and being able to get them all on the same page and getting their buy-in, that is really important. And another thing you need to be able to handle well is ambiguity, and also the notion that you own everything yet you own nothing at the same time. Right? As a product manager, you are the manager of the product, which means you own everything about the product, but also you are not necessarily anyone's boss. It's very typical to go many years in product management before becoming a people manager. Yet you have to work with engineers, you work with project managers, program managers, designers, user researchers, all sorts of people. And you're sort of trying to shepherd the project and ensure its success, yet they don't report to you. Being able to get people's buy-in is also really important. Yeah.
Definitely. I think especially in times since COVID, that is one of
Yeah.
the most dramatic thing we have all seen and heard and experienced is once we move away from the ability to casually bump into a colleague either in, near my
Yeah.
kitchen or just even in a hallway and having those hallway
Yeah.
check-ins. Kind of in the absence of that, how do we continue to build those relationships, right? And
Yeah.
that's where I found written communication has really come to the
Yeah.
foreground. So from something as little or as small as how do you send an effective quick Slack message to email, which is nowadays more medium form content, I would say, to writing full on documentation. So even wiki pages and a customer enablement training, right? Those are very much longer form content where,
Yeah.
yeah,
One thing that I find really helpful is whenever I join a new team or company, I always ask my new manager who are the people that I should meet with, who are the key people that I will be working with. And then I have conversations with them. I get to know their working styles. I get to know what's on their mind, what are their biggest problems, what they expect of me as a PM. All these things are really important for establishing a relationship. And one, I always, at the end of each conversation, ask them, who are the other people I should talk to, right? And you kind of feed a list and you keep on going. And you don't just meet once and stop there, right? Especially in COVID times, you don't have those casual conversations where you bump into each other in the bathroom or in the cafeteria. So it's important to just have scheduled one-on-ones sometimes, even when there's nothing on the agenda, right? Because oftentimes I find that people have items that are not big enough or urgent enough to call a meeting, but then they kind of build up and then there's a lack of alignment and communication and transparency. So it's good to just maybe have like a monthly one-on-one with certain people who are key partners to you. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love your point about asking for them to introduce or at least share more names with you because I think in some way it's one of the way I have found it's almost mapping out an informal organization chart and
Yeah.
more around who is at least at this moment in time working more closely with each other, right? Or who they perceive to be the key stakeholders. And oftentimes it's hard to tell that just from a standard org chart, even if there is a standard org chart, it's really hard to map out those nuances. So I love what you mentioned there. Yeah.
And even when there's an org chart and with titles can mean different things in different companies, right? Like at Microsoft, a program manager is what is often called a product manager in other places, right? And a product manager can mean different things in different places, and the technical product manager also has different meanings. So those informal meetings, like you said, I really like the way you put it, are good at establishing your own informal org chart of who does what in this company.
Given that it's 2021, as product managers, we all read a lot and we just absorb all kind of different info. What are some of the industry or technology trends that you are interested in?
Although my last job was in pharmaceutical ad tech, I find that I'm most drawn to where I began my career, which is retail, fashion, and consumer goods, and the intersection of that with technology. The number one trend that I am super excited by is resell. And when you think of resell, Poshmark,
eBay.
Mercari, eBay, the Real, Fashion File, Rebag, ThreadUp. And in the last few years, digital tools like those and marketplaces are making it easier to buy and sell secondhand. CB insights expects that by like 2028, the secondhand clothing market is going to grow to 64 billion. And
Wow.
that's
Huge.
crazy. And in 2020, because of COVID, resale enjoyed a particularly good year. What happened was that, especially in luxury resale, production slowed down. So people had to look to the resale market to buy goods. In real life, shopping was restricted. So people went online to use digital marketplaces. People had more time to stalk the resale sites,
Oh.
and people became more price conscious.
Yes.
And resale is often cheaper, while they still wanted investment pieces that they could sell later on if they needed the money. And in times of economic instability, that's particularly important. And one niche of resale that I'm particularly fascinated by is the niche of the Instagram reseller. So there's these accounts, for example, Julia Rose Boston, who publish Instagram stories featuring new products throughout the day. And they're often sold within minutes.
Wow.
And they build a loyal following who waits intently for the next story to drop. And the shopping experience is integrated within the social media browsing, kind of like how Instagram tried to do the shop feature, but different.
And I'm using more of that story engagement,
This
and obviously a
engaging,
video.
like instant kind of feeling. Even traditional brick and mortar sellers are paying attention and diversifying into resale. Neiman Marcus, which is a really big department store, they bought a minority stake in Fashion File, which is a resale company. Farfetch, which is a really big e-commerce e-tailer, they have now a pre-owned division where you can buy like pre-owned luxury goods. And there are other trends that are really interesting to me that tie into resale as well, right? The affordable luxury trend. People want quality for less. They want it without the markup that comes with the branding. A lot of the time when you buy luxury goods, you're buying
you're buying the endorsement. You're paying for the celebrity endorsement.
So we see the rise of companies like Italic, The Curated, One Quince, Majuri, and people are also becoming more conscious of sustainability and ethical fashion. And with that, you have a lot of people doing resell and buying secondhand. We also have companies like Vry, which is a jewelry company that sells ethical diamonds. Companies like Reformation, the selling point is sustainable clothing. In the wake of Black Lives Matter and COVID-19, people are becoming more conscious about brand ethics and values. And consumers are increasingly seeing each dollar that they spend as a vote that they cast for the future and the world that they want to live in. And the consumers who have the privilege of the time and the money, the time to spare to do the research, and the money to sometimes pay more if they have to, are being more conscious of who they give their dollars to, and they're choosing to shop small, they're choosing to shop BIPOC owned, and they're choosing to avoid brands that are not transparent about their practices, don't have diverse leadership, greenwash, or exploit their workers.
Or cultural appropriation.
Or culturally appropriate.
As one of my hobbies, I've actually been part of several Facebook groups or communities that's very much in the BST or buy sell trade type, mostly in the resale space. And it's been fascinating both as a consumer. I joined these groups because I also love very much trying out different fashion, but being wary of fast fashion, things like Forever 21 and H&M. And one thing, and that was what my introduction into the BST groups came. And then I realized that most of these are on Facebook, and how people have very creative ways to post, and whether that be the lay flat layout or just having even beautiful storylines that accompany everyone of their posts. And some of them are very cheeky and humorous, and some of them are very kind of dreamy, aspirational styling. Yeah. So we'll have to chat. I think
Yeah.
that sounds like a really fun, very on point trend.
Yeah.
And as you were mentioning that last bit of how folks are just awakening to the importance that their dollar, literally their wallet, are speaking out loud when they make a purchasing decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, so two of the brands I have seen this year, I don't know if you're familiar. One of them is Bernie Dexter is one, and then Trashy Diva is another brand based off New Orleans. And one of the big saga, I think, from last year, where that both of these brands after BLM kind of it served as aspect of both cultural appropriation as well as how
Yeah.
actual behavior differ from quote unquote
Yeah.
marketing behavior and what's on their website. And just being part of these groups, you can see that there was a huge backlash where a lot of Avid supporters even publicly announced that, you know what, I'm never going to buy their brand, not brand new again. Like I won't devote dollars to it. I'll buy in the resale market, but I'm not willing to spend it on any of the new design that's going to come out.
Exactly.
In closing, maybe two questions. The first one is, and I asked this of all of my speakers and everyone who I had the chance to jump on to chat with, is what's one piece of advice you would give to your 20-something-year-old self?
Anyone who says they know where they want to be in 10 years is either lying or deluded.
Love that.
They either do not know, or if they think they know, they will most likely change their mind in the time to get there. So I always say never take an opportunity just for the exit opportunities, and don't try to plan everything out so far ahead. Don't spend all your time trying to get to point B and being unhappy every step of the way there, and then realize halfway there that point B isn't where you want to go after all. And even if you don't change your mind, you're sure about it, and you still want to go there, there's so many ways to get to the same place, and different experiences turn out to be helpful, relevant, and applicable in unexpected ways. My advice would be to always optimize for the present.
I love that. I love that. And such a great reminder, especially at this time. To your point, we're all growing and evolving kind of year to year and even month to month. So to think that whatever we set for ourselves, like, oh, in 5 years' time, I want to do this. In 10 years' time, I want to do that. It's like, well, halfway through, you probably have a whole new goal and a whole different perspective on life at that point.
Yeah.
And the other question, which I actually heard from one of the other speaker, which I thought was an interesting one to kind of throw in the mix, is if you had the chance to go back and change anything in your past journey that lead you to today, would you change anything?
I don't think so, because I think every decision that I made, even if it caused me pain or anguish, made me who I am. And I'm very, although I'm still growing every day and trying to learn and become better, I'm quite at peace with who I am. And I appreciate what I've learned from all my experiences. Yeah, so I don't think so.
Thank you for sharing. That wraps up our chat today. Thank you so much. If folks who are watching this video or reading this post, I'll include your LinkedIn profile at the end so that folks can reach out. Thank you so much, Grace.
Wonderful. I hope you enjoyed today's interview series, and be sure to check back to hear from the other 7 amazing product leaders. Thank you, and happy Women History Month.